Hello friends, I am Shivaji Bhaskar, Faculty of Russian at the School of Foreign Languages, IGNOU. I welcome you all to this course, Basics of Russian Communication Skills Part 1. As you must be aware that in our previous modules, we have discussed about various aspects of the Russian phonetics. We started with the Russian alphabet and then we further distinguished them as vowels and consonants. We have also seen the formation of different combinations where we have combined vowels and consonants as well as consonants and vowels together. This was especially done so that you can recognize different sound patterns, tone and texture of the Russian language. And now, since we are going to talk about the genders in the Russian language, we have been doing quite a few exercises where we have used possessive pronouns with a few words, and we have also identified their endings so that whenever we are making the simple sentences, we make no mistake. So now in this module, we will also be looking at various sound combinations of vowels and consonants, consonants and vowels, and we will also be learning about new words and expressions. We will also be making a few more sentences in Russian. Here you can see that we have a combination of consonants, vowels, like the letter sa. Here I am going to pronounce a few combinations where letter sa being used with vowels, like sa, ats, so, ots, su, uts, se, ets, ts, its. So here you can very well recognize these different sounds, as we have been telling that even if you don't look at the screen, you will be able to identify these sounds. Our recommendation is that you may please note these sounds down on your notebook while listening to them. So I am going to repeat again the combinations: sa, ats, so, ots, su, uts, se, ets and ts, its. Now let us look at the combination where the consonant is coming first and then the vowel. Sa, so, su, se, ts. Now let us pay attention to the combination where the vowel is coming first and then the consonant. Ats, ots, uts, ets and uts. So here you have seen, by doing different type of exercises, you can master these sounds and identify these particular sounds when combined together, maybe in a format of consonant and vowel or vowel and consonant. I hope this is clear to you now. Let us go to the next section. Here again we have combinations where you will find certain combinations of the letter S and letter sa. Why? Because there are certain instances where the sound of S and sa coincide. So let us do the exercise first and pay attention to the sounds. Sa, sa, so, so, su, su, si, si. However, it might look very similar, but there is a very slight difference. Whenever we are pronouncing S and S, there is a slight difference. So let us pay attention once again to the sounds. Sa, sa, so, so, su, su, si, si. Now let us pay attention to another combination. We have sa, sa, so, so, su, su, si and si. So here you have distinguished between these different patterns with the help of these exercises, and I would like to tell you all to pay attention to these sound patterns and try to write them down in your notebook without even looking at the screen. It would help you to identify certain other structures, certain other sound patterns. Whenever you are listening to a certain Russian sound, you will be able to identify it properly and then answer. Alright, now let us go ahead and look at a few more new combinations of such letters. Here we are going to look at the letter T and Ts. So, please pay attention to the sounds. Ta, Tsa, To, Tso, Tu, Tsu, Tu, Si. And now we are going to look at the combination where Tsa is coming first and then letter T. Ta, alright. So, now we are going to do Tsa. First we have done Ta and Tsa, now we are changing into Tsa and Ta. So, accordingly you have to pay attention to the second combination. Tsa, Ta, Tso, To, Tsu, Tu, Si, Tui. Alright, here you have seen the difference, and I hope you will be able to identify these sounds and do the exercises so that you make no mistake in identifying these kind of sounds of the Russian language. Alright, now let us go ahead and pay attention to the new words and expressions. As our effort is that whenever we are using any letter, like in the previous case we have used letter S and Te. So, accordingly we are going to make some words which consist these letters. Okay, so let us pay attention to these new words and expressions. We have the first one, cirque. Cirque means circus. Center. Center means center. Concert. Concert means concert. Koniec. Koniec means end. Отец. Отец means father, and Indiec. Indiec means Indian. If you pay attention to the last word, Indiec, this is a word which means Indian, but suppose, and especially in Russian language, for different gender, for example, if I want to say an Indian, a female, alright, so we have Indianka, Indianka for that. So, Indiec, Indianka, and likewise you have several other words in Russian language. We will be talking about them in our upcoming modules, where you will find different denotions, where you will find equivalent words as per the genders. Another example you can have is, for example, you have already learned the word Prepodavachal, which means professor or teacher. So, Prepodavachal, if it has to be changed into a feminine gender word, it will change into Prepodavachilnitsa. So, a lady professor you can say, Prepodavachilnitsa. Likewise, Uchichil, Uchichilnitsa. Actor, actrisa. So, these kind of words already exist in Russian language, which defines its richness, because in most of the languages sometimes you do not find gender specific words, but in Russian we do have. And likewise you have also already done, for example, student. Student means student, a male student. If you want to say a female student, then it has to be studentka. Okay, and drug means friend. If it is a female friend, then you have to say padruga. So, it is very rich language, very specific language as far as this kind of distinguishment is concerned. So, let us pay attention to these words once again, and then we will go ahead. Cirque, center, concert, Koniec, Отец, Indiec. So, I hope that you have found these new words and expressions very important, and I would like to suggest that you may please note them down in your notebook and use in your day-to-day communication while making simple sentences and communicate with your family and friends. Alright? Okay. Now, let us go ahead and pay attention to these new words. The words are First one, mesets, malajiets, kalso, litso, siertse, sonse, cifra. So, you have these new words where you will find especially the letter th, because we have been doing it, and then letter s. So, we have, let us pay attention to the words again. Mesets means month, malajiets means well done, kalso means ring, litso means face, siertse means heart, sonse means sun, cifra means digit. And since we have been doing certain exercises where we have found that this is the noun, the ending of the noun or the gender of the noun decides the ending of the adjective. You can also see these kind of changes into when we have done possessive pronouns. So, I would like to tell you all that please keep in mind all these important aspects which are very important in order to make correct sentences, where of course you will be using the possessive pronouns, personal pronouns, pronouns, nouns, adjectives, verbs in a conjugated form, or simply while using them in a specific case. So, this is a kind of a scheme of things where you have to use certain things while making the sentences. The sentences can be very simple or they can be of a different tone and texture depending upon the context and the thought. As you know that we have been discussing about certain concepts of the Russian language, that it is the noun which defines the ending of the adjective, and it actually depends upon the gender of the noun. So, accordingly, when you are making your sentences, whether simple or elaborate depending upon the context and thought, you have to be very careful about using these concepts while choosing nouns, adjective, pronouns, personal pronouns or possessive pronouns, verbs in a conjugated form, etc. So, please be careful while using these, but my recommendation is that always try to start with simple sentences and try to use as many as examples which we have done, so that you have a fair idea about how Russian language works. All right, now let us go ahead and pay attention to these new words. The words are: number 1, ulitsa, then stolitsa, pichitsa, pyatnitsa, stranitsa, lekция, and then stanция. Here you have seen several other words with the ending a and ya. So, as you already know that the noun which has ending a or ya belongs to the feminine gender. So, accordingly, ulitsa, stolitsa, pichitsa, these are all feminine gender word. Let us make some examples. Let us go to the previous part first, so that we can make a feminine gender as well as a masculine gender sentence. So, now I am going to choose one example, mesets. Mesets, which means month. I want to say that it is a very good month. So, I would say it is a very, это очень хороший месяц. This is a very good month. Это очень хороший месяц. Now, let us go to the next part and let us choose one example. Here we have certain other examples where you have the nouns of feminine gender. For example, Ulitsa. Ulitsa, which means street. So now I want to say this is a big street. All right. Это очень большая улица. So the gender of the noun is улица, feminine gender, and accordingly the ending of the adjective большой changes into feminine gender большая, большая улица. Okay. So you can also make your own sentences keeping in mind all the important aspect of the Russian grammar and phonetics. All right. Now let's pay attention to the meaning of these new words. We have улица means street, stolitsa means capital, птица means bird, пятница means Friday, страница means page, лекция means lecture, and станция means station. Now, since we have been talking about days of the week, if you remember in our previous module, we have discussed about all the 7 days of the week. Now, we are going to repeat it. So, we will start with Monday. Monday means понедельник, Tuesday, вторник, Wednesday, среда. Then we have Thursday, it means четверг. Then we have Friday, which is you can also see on the screen is пятница. Then we have Saturday, means суббота. And then finally we have Sunday, which means воскресенье. Alright, so I hope you will remember all these days of the week in Russian as well, and we will be discussing and making a few sentences based on that in our upcoming modules. However, for the time being, please note them down if you please, so that you can understand and communicate with your family and friends efficiently. So, here there is another very good example we have. I would like to tell you about this word, which means capital is stolitsa in Russian, stolitsa. So, it is again a feminine gender word. Alright. So, for example, if I want to say Delhi is the capital of India, India is India. Alright. But when we are saying Delhi is the capital of India, I have to say Delhi is Delhi in Russian, Delhi, because it is a proper noun. Delhi stolitsa Inji. So, basically it is in the genitive case, which you will be learning in the dedicated modules, but however it is very important. So, we are just doing it. Delhi is the capital of India. Delhi stolitsa Inji. So, you can also use Moscow is the capital of Russia, Moskva stolitsa России. So, these kind of examples are very important. You can also use the same structure when you want to say capital of the particular states. Alright, and since it belongs to the Rajichelny Padyesh or the genitive case in Russian, you will be learning about them in details in a dedicated module, but however, as a very interesting exercise, you can also do it at home among your family and friends. Alright, now let us go ahead and pay attention to a few new words and expressions. Alright, so here we are going to make some sentences, but before that we will learn about the ending of certain nouns, so that you can understand the meaning of these nouns and know their exact gender. So, as a rule in Russian, there are certain steps which we need to keep in our mind, like if any word is ending with ta, ye, l and soft sign, it denotes masculine gender. If in place of ta, ye, l and soft sign we add nitsa, then it denotes to the feminine gender. How do we know? With an example now. let's pay attention to these examples. Uchichil. Uchichil. As you already know, uchichil means a school teacher or a teacher. Then if we are going to change it into a feminine gender word, then we have a technique of adding nitsa after uchichil. So uchichil nitsa, uchichil nitsa, uchichil nitsa. Likewise, we have pripadavachil. So pripadavachil nitsa. Pisachil, which means author or writer. Then we add nitsa, it becomes pichichil, pisachil nitsa. So here we will do it again. Uchichil, uchichil nitsa, pripadavachil, pripadavachil nitsa, and pisachil, pisachil nitsa. So very importantly and very specifically in Russian, the root of the word actually defines the meaning of the word itself. So in case of pisachil, pisachil nitsa, it comes from the word pisach. The verb means to write. So from there the word is becoming pisachil, the one who writes, writer, author. Pisachil nitsa, as per the gender, feminine gender, a female author, a female writer. Alright. So you can also keep this in your mind, but there are certain cases where we don't have gender specific words. They are neutral. For example, if I want to say doctor in Russian, then we have word vrach. Vrach doesn't have this kind of arrangement where you can change it into like in case of uchichil or pripadavachil, vrach remains vrach. A female doctor or a male doctor always remains vrach. Engineer also remains like that, male or female remains engineer. And likewise there are many other words, especially the professions, where you will find that the meaning remains same and there is no change in that particular word. But however, Russian is a very rich language. In most of the cases you will always find change in the ending of the word if it belongs or denotes to that particular gender. Alright, now let's go ahead and pay attention to certain other combinations of the letter. Now in this case we have kh, letter kh, again a very specific letter in Russian, has a very specific sound, and that is why in order to master it you need to practice. And here we have a combination of letter kh with vowel as well as vowel and the letter kh. So first we are going to do the consonant kh with vowel. Kh, kho, khu, and then khi. Now let's pay attention to the second. Here we have the vowel first and then the consonant kh, akh, ok, uk, ik. Now let's repeat them once again. Kha, akh, ho, ok, khu, uk, and khi, ik. Alright, here you can very easily identify different sounds, especially when letter kh is being pronounced and when it is combined together, or where the vowel is coming first and the letter kh is coming afterwards. So I would like to tell you all that you please do this exercise even without looking at the screen, so that you note them down in your notebook properly, and as a very good exercise in order to understand the tone and texture of the Russian language, and then you will be able to comprehend, listen to the Russian speech in a very efficient manner. Alright, now let's go ahead and pay attention to certain other new words. In this case, we will be having a few words where you will find letter H. The examples we have here, the first one is sakhar. Sakhar means sugar. Then we have parakhod, means steamer. Then we have khram, means temple. Then kleb, means bread, and vozdukh, means air. If you pay attention to the first word sakhar, which means sugar, it can be used very oftenly. Why? Because we use this word sugar. For example, if you want to have tea with sugar or without sugar, you must know the construction. So in this case, we are going to talk about two set of sentences where you will find that I am going to say that I would like to have tea, or I want tea with or without sugar. All right. So how? I want, ya khachu chai. Now I am going to say with sugar. Ya khachu chai sakharam, with sugar. So here I am going to use the exact case in Russian which is known as instrumental case. Tvarichalny padyesh, as it is called in Russian. So I am saying ya means I, khachu want, tea chai with sugar, sakharam. Now if you pay attention to the next construction, I am going to say that I want to have tea, or I want tea without sugar. How do I say? Now I will say ya means I, khachu want, tea chai without sugar, biz sakhara. Whenever we are saying without, we use biz, and sakhar changes into sakhara. This is in genitive case or the Rajichalny padyesh that you will be learning about in your dedicated modules. But since it has to be used almost every day, many times, that you always say that I want tea, I want coffee, something with or without sugar, then you can use this kind of construction. About the grammar, you will be learning about in a dedicated modules. Alright, now let's learn the meaning of these words once again. Sakhar means sugar, parakhod means steamer, khram means temple, kleb means bread, vozdukh means air. Here I would like to tell you once again, because we have very interesting two more examples in this list of words. The first one is khram, which means temple. Suppose if you want to say this is a Hindu temple, you can say eta Hindu iski khram. From India, Hinduism, which means Hinduism, Hindu iski khram. So that particular ending of adjective Hindu iski khram, because khram is a masculine gender word, so it is becoming eta Hindu iski khram. This is a Hindu temple. Now if you want to say kleb, which means bread. If you want to have white bread, so for white, what do we have? We have word beli, because kleb masculine gender word, so beli, eta beli kleb, so it is a white bread. So accordingly you can also make your own sentences. For example, vozdukh, chisti vozdukh, clean air. Alright, so these kind of questions, these kind of answers you can also make. And since you already know how to make sentences in interrogative or in affirmative with use of the, and you can also use niyat whenever required, and it would help you to communicate in Russian in a very efficient manner. I hope you found these exercises very useful. but as we have already recommended, now we are suggesting, please go ahead, note them down, use in your sentences and start communicating with your family and friends. I hope you enjoyed it all. Thank you.